When a character is going on their villain arc, you think one of two things. Ew, gross. Or, shit's about to get real. There's nothing like seeing the innocent light from your favorite character sink into the deepest and darkest depths of the void, all for the sake of their own justice, or whatever stakes they set up for themselves. Hey, that's me. The villain arc is a common trope across all platforms of media. An innocent character has some traumatic events, they grow with that event as a catalyst for the path that they take, and then there is one breaking moment that happens, which erupts into what is called a villain arc. There are many examples of a great villain arc, but there are just as many examples of a terrible villain arc. That begs the question though, what makes a good villain arc? The climax is something that comes to mind, just what is the cost for the actions of your descent into darkness? Some characters lose nothing, but gain a valuable lesson, while other characters simply lose it all, including their life or someone else they love. And other characters commit mass genocide, murdering every living human in their world. To each their own, I guess. My name is Void Enigma, and this is the Enigmatic Void, where we will discuss everything anime. Today, we will be diving into the villain arc trope, to discuss what makes a great villain arc. If you're enjoying this content, go ahead and subscribe and let's get right into it. Not everyone wakes up and decides to become evil. Normally, there is a reaction to an event that changes one's perspective. For instance, a few years ago, I decided to take my only Sunday off out of the month to watch Devilman Crybaby. It was a tough few months and I was barely scraping by. I wasn't in the correct headspace and life was just taking its toll on me. I was broke, still technically am, and I scraped together enough funds for a chicken sandwich, fries, and a drink. After spending all day cleaning, it was finally time to watch Devilman Crybaby. I sat there at 7 p.m. as I had my food, and I was ready to watch this new anime to give me a new perspective on the facts of my life. I sat there, watched every episode, getting more and more enthralled by each action that was taken by the characters. I was heavily invested by episode 1, and I kept going. As I got deeper into the hole that was Devilman Crybaby, a sense of stress began to hit me. I watched all 12 episodes and I faced immediate regret. I sat there, 6 a.m. on Monday morning, staring at my hands. I have work in 3 hours, and I thought, why the fuck did I just watch that? From that moment, I decided that it was my goal to make every depressed person I see watch Devilman Crybaby. You want a good anime? I have one just for you. Go and watch it, you depressed swine. When you're at your absolute lowest, go and watch Devilman Crybaby and you will understand just what I went through. To this day, I still curse my enemies with recommendations for this anime. I get a negative comment on YouTube, go watch Devilman Crybaby when you're sad. Someone cuts me off in traffic, windows down, go watch Devilman Crybaby when you're sad. Someone stabs me in a backstreet alley 3 times while putting my own finger into the knife wounds. I scream in agony. Go watch Devilman Crybaby when you're sad! I bet I ruined at least one of their nights, those evil bastards. Now, maybe in a different headspace, I could have enjoyed the show, but that will forever be one of my biggest gripes of anime. I normally drop anime if I don't enjoy it, but something kept me watching. Now, the reason for your villain arc is just as important as the conclusion. You have characters like Sasuke, whose entire clan was murdered by his brother, Gon, who lost his mentor, Thorfinn, whose father was killed right before his eyes, and Eren, who saw the truth of the world. These traumatic events build your empathy for the character, and it lets you understand their path and why they took it. Losing the ones you love is the most common reason for a villain arc. Finding a death note is another, but someone like Light Yagami was inherently evil once given that power. The power of the death note merely gave him the tools to enact his views upon the world around him. Taking that 180 and going down a more lucrative and vile path is what makes a villain arc so enlightening. The slow descent into madness, as evident in Gon from Hunter x Hunter, is really a perfect example of this. It really is an experience that gives you chills as you experience the downfall of a joyful character. I suppose we're all sadists at the end of the day, aren't we, eh? And that leads me to my next point, the descent into madness. Sometimes this is an instant fall, and other times it's a slow roll down a hill. An example of an instant drop-off into chaos is Thorfinn. His descent began when his father died. Thor's was killed by Askeladd right before his eyes, and he vowed, Thorfinn vowed to kill the man who killed his father. He fought him time and time again while building a fatherly relationship with the man who actually killed his dad, although it was fueled by that grudge. I enjoy this anime so much that I actually made a rap about Thorfinn's story. It's linked in the description if you do want to go check it out. Another descent that seemed ordinary at first but evolved was Eren Yeager. Classical. Titan kills his mom, I will become the Titan that kills them all. I wouldn't say that this is a villain arc yet, however, as the first half of the anime was merely him acting out on his duties. His true descent was depicted in a flashback, as he realized the truths of the world, and his role in the future. We learn of his descent later, but nonetheless, it was a tragedy for our once-thought hero. There are many manga and anime that have a slow roll into their descent, and we can follow that clearly. Some cases are Kaneki from Tokyo Ghoul, Lelouch from Code Geass, but these actions are normally an inevitability of the character. An example of a slow barrel rolling descent is Gon from Hunter x Hunter. There's a reason why I keep bringing up our man Gon. His descent into a true quote-unquote villain was something that you would have never seen coming. Gon is that standard old-school anime shonen protagonist full of joy, happiness, and of course, grit. Sure, he gets serious when shit is happening, and he's always had his fair share of pain and anguish in this journey, but that was nothing compared to what happened when he saw his mentor killed. He slowly, but surely, evolved into the menace that we expected, but no one anticipated just how far Gon would go. Despite his actions being straightforward and displayed his true heroism as the character he always was, it's the emotion and demeanor that he carried himself with that really strikes a chord with you. The malice in his words, the way he treats his best friend, the realization of what's to come. His relationship with Killua, the same one that he trusted to take on the burdens of a deadly fight, and the same one whom he trusted with all of his soul and all of his nen. He threw that aside to take the revenge with his own hands. You feel his anguish and absolute anger as he sits there, waiting to confront the one who caused it. And the climax, oh man, the climax. The climax of a villain arc is where everything comes full circle, and there's generally 3 paths. From these point onward, I'll actually add a timestamp for you to skip forward to, because these are going to be very spoiler heavy if you haven't seen these particular anime. I'll add the anime name on screen and where you actually need to skip forward to, and for those of you who are just listening in, make sure to skip ahead when you actually hear me call out the name of the anime. I don't want to spoil the end of some of these character stories. Now, those 3 scenarios. 1, everything is fine, valuable lesson learned, character returns to normal. 2, everything is fucked, character is not fine, lesson may or may not be learned. And 3, everything is dead. Every person the character wanted to get rid of is gone. Character may be dead or alive in this scenario. If you can think of any other outcome, please let me know down in the comments. For scenario 1, where everything is fine at the end, is something like maybe Kaneki from Tokyo Ghoul. While the second season onward was a shit interesting, the anime was amazing and is always at the top of my list. Kaneki is a character who became a ghoul, and despite many shortcomings, he eventually, with this famous quote, said, "I am a ghoul." Now, within means, not everything is okay because he lost many people up to this point, but he was able to hold on to the important people in his life. And considering what they were up against, it's definitely still a good ending for Kaneki, despite all the losses. For scenario 2, well, this is somewhat enveloped in Gon's arc in Hunter x Hunter, when he came to terms with the realization that his actions caused the permanent death of his mentor. It was a wrap for the enemy. He traded all of his power he would gain in order to absolutely destroy Pito. And we saw the tragedy that ensued. The consequences of his actions were severe, to say the least. At the end of the arc, I would classify this as everything is fucked from the character's perspective, but Gon carried out what had to be done, despite the consequences. Scenario 3 is something like Attack on Titan, and Eren's plan to, casually commit genocide. In this situation, I am still in the camp of Eren did nothing wrong. Many people despise the ending of Attack on Titan, and I will be discussing that in my next video where we talk about anime with horrible conclusions, but to say that Attack on Titan had a horrible ending is far from the truth. It is always a means to an end when Eren said, "I'm going to kill them all," and he delivered on that promise. alongside 80% of the world. What makes Eren's villain arc so appealing and engaging is the fact that he knows what he's doing is fundamentally wrong. Setting yourself up to kill millions of innocent lives for the sake of a handful of your friends is really something you have to come to terms with. Would I do it in his situation? Yes. There is that saying, after all, it's me and you against the world, and if I had to choose my family's survival or the world, I'd choose the world. But if I had to choose my family versus the world of people who wanted to kill me for merely existing, well, that shifts the narrative into my favor to annihilate them all, not me casually admitting to genocide. These are all successful villain arcs in my eyes, and while I say that there are a few examples of terrible villain arcs, I can't think of one because they're just unmemorable, I suppose. The easiest example that I can think of is Future Diary. I can't believe I used to love this show back in the day, but when you're actually thinking about it, this is your first death game that you've ever seen, you might actually find it enjoyable. It's still a fun watch, but I just can't believe that I used to love this show. I definitely hate it now that my brain has evolved. And finally, the absolute failure of a villain arc is Orochimaru from Naruto. This character is a rogue ninja who experimented on his subjects, the same one who killed the third Hokage, the same one who guided Sasuke down his path to destruction and was depicted as an absolute menace, and he gets a happy ending? Now, I'm all for characters having good endings, but Orochimaru's story felt like it had no climax. He was thought to have been killed, only to be revived, and just when he comes back, "You're finally back, Orochimaru. I'm ready to take you down because you will not be getting my butt." Nah, I'd lose. Orochimaru went from being one of the most heinous villains to a chill mentor. I guess Sasuke and Itachi really put him in his place, or he just mellowed out over the years. Who knows at this point. A truly impactful villain arc makes us really believe the motivations of the character, and it should have that wow factor at the end. There's also the consequences if the character lives to tell the tale, and we really have to feel those consequences. Thorfinn is an example of a perfect ending to a villain arc from a story standpoint, but perhaps not from a epic punch-stabbing battle standpoint. The second season of Vinland Saga was a roller coaster of emotions for me. Thorfinn is not the same person that he was before. He is broken and has finally come to terms with the fact that all of the people that he's killed on his path of revenge, yeah, that's too much for someone to handle. On one hand, the transformation of his character was admirable, and the struggle as he actually decided to figure out what to do with his life was a much needed change. However, the consequences of that is we lose our badass ruthless Thorfinn, but that's just the inevitability. I can't wait to see how Season 3 will shake things up, and I might even pick up the manga at this rate. Nonetheless, Thorfinn's conclusion was great, and that's what made Vinland Saga an amazing anime. It really fits the narrative and makes you really come to terms with the fact that though he was a badass, his actions were inherently evil in the grand scheme of things. That's the thing about villain arcs. You root for the character to succeed and win, but you have to realize that these characters, at the end of the day, are villains. But is that really a bad thing? Sometimes, doing what needs to be done surpasses the moral spectrum of good and evil. When a character is faced with the death of their loved ones, all caution gets thrown to the wind. They have the power to get their revenge and avenge the fallen, and they will do whatever it takes to achieve that goal. Most of the time, they realize that that goal was hollow and meaningless, but when put in the same situation, would they do it all over again? The answer will always be yes. Go ahead and like and subscribe for more enigmatic content, as this is a new channel. This is really important to help the growth of this channel. Be sure to leave a like for the YouTube algorithm, and thank you so much for watching until the end. I really appreciate all of the support. Until next time, Enigma out.